Welcome back to the studio. I'm Warhammer Man. As you can see, I got a little different of a setup going on today. We have our Zone Mortalis floor tile set with basically like some Sector Mechanicus and some Dark Uprising terrain kind of blended together. And what I was sort of going for was, obviously everybody wants to know, is everything compatible? Everybody's been going through and checking and measuring and messing with this and messing with that. And I basically just wanted to see, obviously the stuff is meant to be compatible, but could you get what I would refer to as essentially like a seamless blend between the two types of terrain? So what I did was, without going too crazy, everything is still modular and magnetized, and obviously there's a couple different paint schemes going on because it is part of a few different sets. But basically all I was trying to do was just see, okay, if I put all this stuff together and I did it in, a decent setup of a way, does it look like these items were meant, to be on a board together, or does it just look like I put a bunch of my stuff together? And, with very little effort and moving stuff around and kind of just, arranging it, I felt like I was able to get what I would refer to as a seamless blend. I like how, you can obviously make out pretty good the differences between the pieces, especially because some are bare plastic, some are painted, the two different schemes or whatever. But essentially, I felt like we achieved it, like, undeniably. I mean, it looks like the whole set belongs together. It looks like all the pieces were meant to be together to begin with. And, the way they have, like, essentially all the measurements done and everything, it's very clear that it was their intention, for you to be able to use all this stuff together and, create an awesome looking board. I was very happy with the night board that I made. Also the Thunderhawk one, I did like sort of like the hanger setup for this last couple, and then this one is sort of like the Custodes Grav-tank hanger, and that is because that's what I'm currently painting right now, finishing them up for a commission that's going out in the next couple of days, and actually that board's going out as well, so I'll be making a new board as well. So maybe I'll do another painting tutorial, do it a little bit different, but I'll still use like the same style stencils and everything, because again, the way the stencils are set up, the outside striped line on this board is the deployment zones. It's the 2-inch and 3-inch mark from the table edge, which is what all the Dark Uprising missions use. And then the only other one is if, like, you were doing like a rescue mission or something like that. You put like the captive in the center and everybody has to be within 6 inches of them, or the other one where you just have to be within 6 inches of the center. But either one of those is taken care of by the red line, because the inside of the red line is 6 inches from the center, and the outside of the red line is half of a base plus 6 inches. So it's supposed to make up for essentially if there was a guy standing in there and you were just going to be within 6 inches of that guy. And again, that's just because that's what the deployment maps are on Dark Uprising. I don't have the other Necromunda games, as I was saying. I just got back into it after years away, so I never picked up the more recent one. I played the one from like 20 years ago or whatever, and I think the other one has the newer one, but not the brand new one, Dark Uprising. I think that one has different missions in it. Well, I know it has different missions in it, and I don't know about the deployment setups, but essentially I could probably add those in, if there's like sort of a standardized as well. So we'll have to see in time, and maybe I'll do a different style that covers that setup, or one that covers both, whatever. But again, it'll be cool to just be able to grab those patterns right off, right off the site, print them off on your computer. Essentially, just do the little cutouts with an X-Acto knife, and then you can make your own set. Basically, with it's more about, like, when you have a pattern for something, it's more about just taking the time and doing it right. Because the work is like already done, and that's kind of what I was saying about the Thunderhawk gunships too. It's like if you have a pattern for something, like pretty much anybody can make it. Your little brother or sister could probably make it with like a little bit of supervision. Well, maybe not the Thunderhawk because it gets a little more serious, but something like this where you're essentially like, just putting a pattern over top of something and then just, using a can of spray paint. I mean, the real work is the actual measurements and the design you know, and the idea itself and everything, you know. And that's what, you know, that's a lot of time that's what you're paying for when somebody's good at something. There was like a cool little I don't know what it is, like a meme or quote or whatever. When I do a job, you're not paying for how long it takes me to do it. You're paying for how long it took me to go to school to learn how to do it. Something like that. And that makes like perfect sense because it's true. You know, sometimes people see you do something and they're like, "Oh man, you knocked that out quick." Like, I feel like I overpaid for that. I could have done it. And you're like, "Yeah, but you wouldn't be paying somebody to do it if you could have done it." One, and two, it doesn't always come out like that when you do it, especially not the first time. And then a lot of times you end up paying somebody to do, you know, what it was anyway. So, but anyway, I just thought that was a funny little thing because that's so true, especially with like, you know, art and type stuff like that. You know, things look easy when you see the final product and everything, and you think, "Oh, I could have done that," or you see the step-by-step process, but it doesn't always work out like that in real life, as easy as it looks. You know what I mean? And then especially as somebody has more and more experience with something, obviously it becomes easier. But so yeah, that's how basically, you know, you'd be able to just make your own set using those. And I think it would just be cool if I just started putting all this stuff up, and you basically would just go on there, and you'd just be able to download like these cool things. You could see all the plans, and then you could basically just go right along in like my step-by-step video, you know, and do your own board. Obviously pause it whenever you need to, and then, you know, the truth is you can make improvements on it because I'm always working on a million things, so I don't have time to perfect everything all the time. So, you know, having other people essentially picking up where I left off or picking up where other people leave off on stuff, you know, allows for like everybody to overall just have cooler stuff because everybody's constantly improving on everything. It's sort of like beneficial to everybody. Yeah, looks nice. Just picking out a little bit of the detail, going around on the turrets and doing the Nuln oil right now down in the cracks. Um, and if you're not familiar with the other videos too, I do have a couple of like LED tea lights going currently in the background, so that's what you're seeing back there. I have the ability to switch around the colors, which is pretty cool. Gives you quite a few options. I like the fade one because then, you know, a lot of times I'll go back and look at the video and it will have like, you know, the different color effect, like kind of screenshot it or whatever, and then I can pick one that looks cool. I basically get to see like all the different ways like the light looks on camera, and then just pick like a cool one for the little like thumbnail or whatever. So yeah, I'm just going through, just doing like a little bit of Nuln oil on all the Leadbelcher, just to give it that extra little depth down in the cracks. Kind of brings out the detail. I'm a huge fan of Leadbelcher Nuln oil combo. I mean, it's obviously super basic, but just what you get, the effect is just absolutely amazing. It gives you like that kind of like oily metal, like realistic look, I think. And then let's see what else on the Sector Mechanicus stuff. Well, I didn't go through and put any of like the railings on there or clip any of them on or anything. You can clip like the Sector Mechanicus stuff on the Necromunda set and the Necromunda on the Sector Mechanicus. The It's sort of weird, like the Necromunda ones fit like a little bit, I think, looser, so they go easier on the Mechanicus stuff than the Mechanicus stuff goes on the Necromunda stuff, if that makes sense. But that being said, there's two different widths of the Necromunda stuff because of like the floor tiles are different, like the different pieces of floor tiles are different. So depending where you try to clip on a railing, the width of the floor in some places is thicker and thinner. So they will actually clip on better in some places than other. And all it has to do with is just that there's like the different tiles with like the extra little like spacer piece in between versus like you know, the actual one. And it sort of has to do with like which, it's basically the pieces that connect to the pillars are a little bit thicker, and the ones that are just like the actual walkways and go like in between or on the corners of the pillars. Those ones have like are just like a little bit thinner, so they clip on just a little bit like looser. Like it's funny because the Necromunda ones kind of fall off, but then the Sector Mechanicus ones like stay on better. So the ones that are like made for it don't fit as good because they have to fit both. As where the sector stuff fits like perfect. So it actually fits better on some of the pieces than the stuff that came with it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of all this stuff. I mean, it's absolutely like looks great on the table. I'm like really liking how the lights kind of look, just kind of set up in the back, kind of subtly. Um, During the games, it'll probably be a little bit different, but we'll see how that goes. I wouldn't mind keeping like one of the real subtle lights on in the back or something like that, or else like having the area like very well lit. But then we had talked about like in objective based games, sort of like having the objective like colored based on which team like currently controls it or whatever. So that would be kind of cool. Or like if it was like if the I can't remember what it's called, but when the mission like slips towards chaos or whatever in the campaign, everything kind of gets like that red tint to it. But as long as like the Palanites are still in charge and there's still order, it could still have like that little, lighter blue look. Not quite as evil. Yeah, those things are looking good. Definitely looking good. Very happy with these. I like to do all my stuff in pieces as best I can. So like for instance, I did not glue the hulls to the, I don't know what you would call it, like the engine side pieces or whatever, so that I can just take them off and paint them separate. And then once everything is absolutely done, I'm going to go through and glue them on. And it just gives like a little bit more control. You're able to just handle that piece a little better, get down in the cracks a little better. You don't have to worry about like handling all over it. And then actually I might do a video on the transfers as well. I do have the with my most recent Forge World order, I got that transfer sheet, and I might well, no, I'm definitely going to be using some of those on here per the client's request. So I will make a video probably doing that as well. And then I have that I have micro sole and micro set, which is basically it's just like it essentially is a way of applying the transfers that basically it's like a two-part setup, and the one part sort of like softens it up. It almost like melts the transfer just a little bit and allows it to like really just shape onto the surface and just really look like it belongs there. And then when you put on the micro set, it essentially like kind of just like cures it, so it turns it back like solid or whatever. And then it's like much more theoretically, it's much more permanent and it's much more like contoured to fit the shape. Now in some cases, if you have like a big flat area, it's not necessarily as important. For instance, like the Custodes area where you're going to put the transfers, they have that like curve to them, which is borderline. It's a subtle curve, so the transfers are able to make up the distance pretty well, but because there's just so much to it, it doesn't always